Hello, this is a short video introduction to my book called Weight Loss Diets. Now, my line of work is as a private doctor advising people on matters to do with complementary therapies and things like this. So, a lot of the questions I got asked by both clients and friends and so forth, well, what do you think about this diet and what do you think about that diet? And although I did some research, I found that I didn't have much knowledge about the subject at all. And it's important to remember that doctors in general don't know very much about diets and food at all, as this is not part of the standard medical syllabus. This is quite an important point. And to what extent the type of food that people should eat and so forth is relevant to medicine. This is not the job of an individual doctor, but the role of public health medicine. So it's the government that puts out information on on stuff about healthy eating and things like this. So this book ended up, I educated myself as I researched and wrote this book. So now the books, to start the book off, I've got a short chapter on some basic information about food, different types of food and so forth, and also focusing on a very important classification called the NOVA food classification, which which divides food into things like highly refined, moderately refined, and unrefined foods. And also stuff that I picked up from articles written by Harvard Medical School and so forth on basic concepts of diets and food. I then go on to a chapter about 12 popular diets that are currently running. When I did research on the internet, I came across 12 diets that are currently in vogue. Now, by clicking on the contents page of to do with this book, you can see what diets they are. And the other ones currently in vogue. Now, in order to appraise these diets, I have taken advantage of what the British Dietetic Society has had to say about them and what are the pros and cons of all these diets, because some of them are quite different from each other. Like some might be high on protein, others might be high on low carbohydrate and things like this. So there's no synchronicity in these different diets necessarily. So I regard the British Dietetic Association as the gold standard, and they have come up with what is called the 12-week NHS weight loss plan, which is free to look up and download. And this is the only diet I, as a person, endorse. I don't endorse any of the other diets as such. Now, there's another chapter in the book on different diets that have gone before. Now, in order to understand the significance of currently popular diets, this has to be seen against the canvas of diets that have previously done the rounds, and many of which are now forgotten or completely discredited. And researching the internet, I came across some 18 other diets which I have briefly described in a chapter in this book. So that's quite important. It's important to see present diet fads in context with what has gone before. Now, there's a chapter in my book on on mainstream diets, and I focus on the Mediterranean diet, which is now considered to be pretty much the gold standard. But there's also some things on some other diets. But what I have also highlighted in this chapter is that I was unable to find any research on the rice-based diets of Asia that actually are consumed daily by hundreds of millions of people, not tens of millions, but hundreds on a daily basis. I could come across no research on this. It would appear that all the research that has been done on diets has been done on particular kinds of Western diets and not other diets around the world. Uh, and tropical countries. Now I have included 2 chapters in my book on food items, so there's which are of common interest. So there's one chapter that deals with common items such as bread, milk, sugar, salt, cooking oils, and so forth. And there is another chapter that deals with vitamins, minerals, and supplements. Now, one of the key chapters in my book is to do with the cholesterol debate. Now, for the importance of this is that for the last 20 years, people have been encouraged to have low-fat diets based on the idea that having too much cholesterol in your diet increase the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and so forth. And consequently, the class of drugs called statins came about, which artificially lowered cholesterol in the blood, and large swathes of the population are actually on statins at this current time. Now, last year there was a major publication called the European Study, which dealt with some hundreds of thousands of people and their case study reviews, and the results of this finding cast doubt on the validity of previous research about cholesterol. So I became very interested in this controversy, and looking through the internet and papers and things on the matter, I came across the work of an American cardiologist called Dr. Brett Scher, and who wrote a complete article on how to understand and interpret the findings of previous studies and so forth about cholesterol. And he cast doubt on the validity of this research as well. Now, I have taken the liberty of printing his article from the internet word by word, and I think this is an excellent reference thing. And there's also some of the new ideas that have come about to do with heart attacks and strokes, and that is to do with something called insulin resistance, which I have mentioned in the book. So this is, I regard, an important chapter and a significant one. Now, I've also written a little chapter on the business of mood and health. When I was a practicing doctor, and until about, in fact, I would say until 10 years ago, the medical profession knew very little about what is now called the gut biome. In other words, the colonies of bacteria that live in the human intestines and assist digestion and produce vital chemicals to assist the body with various functions. And the gut biome is now considered to be literally a second brain that produces specific chemicals that help our normal brain to function properly. So having a good bacteria in the gut or can be crucial to also keeping good mental health. It's a very interesting thing, and consequently, and there's a lot, and this is an area of medicine which is now cutting edge, and there's a lot to be found out, and I suspect we'll only know much more, and it'll take another 10 years before we know much more about it. But it would appear that particular diets that are high in different kinds of greens and unrefined foods, and also the possible judicious use of something called prebiotics and probiotics, may assist getting the colonies of bacteria that live in individual people's guts in good shape. So I've written a chapter about that. Now, Now, as a summary, to summarize what I want to say about this book is that I have endeavored here, the book is not very large at all, uh, but I have endeavored here to give a ordinary reader a lot of basic information about food and diets. And for anybody considering a diet or considering a weight loss diet or something like that, I feel my book would give a lot of basic knowledge. And then it's then up to the person to do their own research and make their own choices and so forth. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.